Tanse nitatemtik. Hello friends, good morning, and tawao. Welcome to the Greater Parkland Regional Chamber's first Indigenous Business Connections event. This event is brought to you in partnership with Beta B Consulting, Braden Center for Career Advancement, Adamit's Financial Solutions, the City of Spruce Grove, and the Town of Stony Plain, with ongoing sponsorship from the Government of Alberta, Cisco, and Genco Construction. My name is Paula Adamitz, Sucker Creek First Nation, Otinia. I am from Sucker Creek First Nation in Treaty 8 territory, as well as the Vice Chair of the Greater Parkland Regional Chamber and the Chair of the Chamber's Indigenous Business Committee. Today, on behalf of the Chamber and its partners, we bring to you an educational opportunity with many business leaders and entrepreneurs to open doors, to create opportunities, and to build bridges between all of our communities and our Indigenous neighbors in this region. Throughout the next 2 hours, you will be introduced to several Indigenous leaders, business owners, and individuals who, along with us, are committed to making our region a better place to live, work, and play. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that I am speaking to you on the traditional territories in Alberta for the Nehiawak, Blackfoot, Nakota, Anishinaabe, and Treaty 6 First Nations, the Métis Nation Region 4, and the many Métis First Nations and Inuit who have walked these lands for centuries. And now a word from our Chamber Chair, Darcy Torium.
Hi, my name is Darcy Torium, and I am the current chair of the Greater Parkland Regional Chamber of Commerce. In light of the tragic discovery of the 215 children's remains at the residential school in Kamloops, BC, the Greater Parkland Regional Chamber and its partners would like all Indigenous people to know our thoughts are with you. This is a terrible tragedy and a stark reminder of a dark period in Canada's history. 6 years ago this month, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC, was established to uncover the truth about Canada's Indian residential schools and to guide and inspire a process of healing towards reconciliation. In order to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation, 94 calls to action were developed. The TRC defines reconciliation as establishing and maintaining a mutually respectful relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in Canada. Many people believe that residential schools happened long ago. The last residential school in Canada, however, did not close permanently until 1996. Reconciliation goes beyond acknowledging residential schools and the harm they created that continues today. It must also mean and lead to recognizing the structures and mindset in place that enabled residential schools to happen in the first place. Reconciliation calls upon all Canadians to embrace the truth and seek ways to heal, establish, and maintain relationships based on the foundations of respect and understanding. Call to Action 92 specifically addresses the need for economic reconciliation to continue to unlock Indigenous business potential, ensure equitable access to jobs, training, and education opportunities, proper consultation through the role of the corporate sector in building respectful relationships. This will work to ensure long-term sustainable benefits in Indigenous economic development. I and my chamber colleagues encourage members of the public, other regional chambers, and the various levels of government to commit to enacting the 94 calls to action laid out by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada report. The effect of residential schools continues to impact the Indigenous peoples to this day. And if you are affected, I encourage you to reach out. The Indian Residential Schools Crisis Line is available 24 hours a day. The number is 1-866-925-4419. That's 1-866-925-4419. We'll include the number along with several other resources for those in need in our event package, emailed out in the coming days. Our thoughts and prayers are with our Indigenous neighbors and all those in the community who continue to work to preserve the memories and bring the children home. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. And to the people of Kamloops Squapham First Nation, we grieve for you and you are not forgotten. This morning, I'd like to welcome a number of special guests, including Elder Philip Campio of Enoch Cree Nation, Mackenzie Brown of Indigenous Tourism Alberta, and Chubby Cree, drummers from Edmonton. We also have words of welcome from the City of Spruce Grove, the Town of Stony Plain, as well as the Honourable Rick Wilson, Minister of Indigenous Relations for the Province of Alberta. To begin, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce you to Elder Philip Campio. Elder Philip is a traditional woodland Cree who is originally from Driftpile First Nation, Alberta, now residing in the Enoch area. As a young man, his father taught Elder Philip how to be self-sufficient and to live off the land. Inherent in these teachings was an unwavering respect for Mother Earth and the spirituality held by all of her inhabitants. As an adult, Elder Philip has devoted his life to sharing his knowledge of traditional values and lifestyle. He is often contracted to do numerous presentations in Edmonton and surrounding areas, and is invited to help host many traditional and community events across Canada. Elder Philip is actively involved in teaching holistic approaches to health and healing. He works with many school divisions and organizations across the province to share his knowledge and to encourage healthy relationships with all people.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here on Treaty 6. I welcome you to Treaty 6 land. And when I acknowledge Treaty 6 land, it's not just the land, it's the ancestors that created this space, that help create a path that we followed for many generations and bringing it into the world of today. It's an honor to be here today. I welcome you again, and I'd like to talk a little bit before I do a prayer. And what I'd like to talk about is how we live in such a diverse world today. And being in such a diverse world, we all think about humility. We want to think about humility. When I think about humility, I believe that we're all equal. No one's greater, no one's better. We all are equal people. We have to learn to walk and work together, to understand each other in this world that we live in today. And as I stand here before you in Treaty 6, I want to honor our leaders today that struggle to deal with the tragedies that had happened in the past. And it's not to say we forget them, but to say that we move forward in a good way, that we can help each other, that we can have closure, that we can have understanding. And when we start thinking about working as businesses in this area, we have to understand each other. We have to be sincere with what we bring forward. And today, as I stand here, I honestly pray that this can happen, because I believe in Creator, I believe in God, and I believe in all humanity, that we are good people and that we just need to find that goodness. We need to be kind, we need to be humble, and we need to help each other. And now, in order to help each other, we have to have a good dialogue. That's where it starts. Because when you have clear, positive dialogue, then you begin to understand each other. And once you understand each other, you can walk forward with that and help each other. So today, as we stand here before you, I humbly ask you to join me in a prayer that we pray today that we can walk in a good way. We pray today that we understand each other, and we pray for the elders, the knowledge keepers, and all our political leaders, that they can sit together and move forward. Now join me. How no tawi si mantu hanachagisugaw. Asumina and kuichamat piwichinanu hekakyo kanipon umutaaski. Creator, I call on you today. I call on you to come and be with us in the circle of life. I humbly ask you to bring forward the blessings, that we walk together in harmony. We live in such a diverse world today that you recognize each of us. We have what's in our heart to bring forward in a good way, a positive way. We pray that we can understand each other, that we can help each other, that we can walk in a good way, that the future we hold, the young people will understand that one day where we stand, they will take over in a good way. This is what I ask for today as we start this process of what we call business dialogue. I pray that you will hear us, that you will be with us, that you'll come and help these ones here, to help carry the message in a good way. Be with us today, Holy Ones. Take my prayers to Creator. Hi, hi. So I thank you very much, and I wish the best for all of those that are going to be involved in this, and have a good day. Hi, hi.
Hi. Elder Campillo, thank you for opening for us in prayer and for starting us off in this journey in a good way. Next, I'd like to introduce Erin Rutherford with the City of Spruce Grove, followed by Lisa Gilchrist with the Town of Stony Plain.
Hi, I'm Erin Rutherford, Manager of Social Planning here at the City of Spruce Grove. The City of Spruce Grove wants people of all walks of life and cultures to feel welcome to live, work, and experience community right here. That's why we're committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion, as well as reconciliation work. Over this past year, we've been focusing on ourselves through internal development by rolling out gender-based analysis plus training to all staff across the organization, conducting policy audits, and rolling out an inclusion toolkit to help staff in projects, services, and program delivery to better serve our residents. We're also really excited about the Community Inclusion Initiative, which was approved in the 2021 to 2023 corporate plan. This initiative has 3 key focus areas: celebrating diversity, marginal no longer, and reconciliation. We're excited to work with stakeholders, including business across the region, to bring our aspirations to action around inclusive community. COVID-19 and recent local and international events have highlighted the need for our systems to change. We acknowledge that the City of Spruce Grove is a diverse community. We have over 2,810 self-identified Indigenous people living right here in our city, including First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. We also have over 3,635 people of color that call this place home. But our community is bigger than the city. It's the region as a whole. And so we're committed to working regionally to advance the work of equity, diversity, and inclusion as well, including working with Treaty 6 nations and Métis Nation Region 4. By focusing on equity, diversity, and inclusion, we can provide culturally responsive services, remove systemic barriers, and empower equity-seeking groups within our region. By working on this, we're working to achieve the vision within the City of Spruce Grove to create a great place for people to live, work, and play for all. Thank you.
I'm Lisa Gilchrist, General Manager for Community and Social Development with the Town of Stony Plain. Thank you and a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us for the first Indigenous Business Connection event. Each and every one of us participating today are playing an active role in building relations, celebrating our diverse communities, and creating a more inclusive, vibrant region. Every June, we celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day on June 21st. And the Indigenous Business Connections event is the start of local activities. This year marks the national 25th anniversary of celebrating the heritage, diverse cultures, and outstanding achievements of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. As Stony Plain community members, we live, work, and play on the traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. This Indigenous Peoples Day, let us be mindful and let us honor those whose footsteps have marked these lands since time immemorial. The devastating news from earlier this month serves as a stark reminder of ongoing colonial violence and the immeasurable pain brought by systems of assimilation that continue to impact Indigenous peoples across the nation. Today, our thoughts are with Tecumloops Tishaquemp, First Nation, and all Indigenous communities and peoples. Building on our Together We Shine plan, the town of Stony Plain is working to increase knowledge and awareness of the importance of diversity and inclusion. At the heart of our work is an acknowledgement of the social and economic barriers, stigma, and prejudice that target Indigenous peoples and prevent equitable opportunities across many aspects of professional life. Through networking events such as this one, our communities are given an opportunity to learn from one another, share experiences and stories, and advocate for a more inclusive and equitable society for all. In recent years, there has been a notable shift in our community for an increased commitment to inclusion. More and more businesses are recognizing a diverse and inclusive workplace as a strategic business asset. This push for more inclusive professional environments is resulting in greater accountability, transparency, and equitable treatment of employees by employers. In many cases, inclusion in the workplace further allows businesses to attract and engage employees, achieve return on investment, and better meet customer needs and customer expectations. The town of Stony Plain values and believes in collaboration. We are proud to be a contributing member for the working group that is hosting today's event. This rich partnership is increasing awareness on Indigenous learnings, protocol, and practices. I want to thank all the event organizers and partners for creating this opportunity. I hope today serves as a rich learning experience for all our participants. I look forward to working together to foster intercultural learning and pave a united path forward for the Tri-Region. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin and Lisa. Your commitment to our event, as well as to building diversity and equity in our region, shows strongly through your events, programs, and resources. We're grateful to be able to work with you and your teams to create opportunities for us all. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are terms that have become popular over the last few years. Acknowledgement of the economic benefit of diversity has become increasingly evident as business owners and community members see all that a variety of cultures, religions, beliefs, and stories have to offer. Culturally diverse areas such as Alberta benefit through everyone's ideas, knowledge, and wisdom. We all have different ways of thinking and bringing original and unique perspectives into the workplace. This breaks down barriers, increases opportunities, and strengthens communities, creating a stronger, more diverse, and welcoming region for all. When we were introduced to Mackenzie Brown, we were immediately drawn in by her infectious energy, her unlimited drive, and her dedication to her history and to her culture. As a part of the Indigenous Tourism Alberta, Mackenzie has been instrumental in helping us here at the Chamber bring together this event, which we are offering to you today. Welcome, Tawao Mackenzie.
Tansin to Tomamat Mackenzie Brown Nitsigastan, Pigitoach and Skahigan Uchinia, Amiskochi Skahigan Miguach New Weekend. Hi everyone, my name is Mackenzie Brown, and I'm the project manager with Indigenous Tourism Alberta. I'm originally from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, but I have made my home here in Edmonton for the last 8 years. And I'm here to do a presentation for everybody really regarding Indigenous tourism growth and then building reciprocal relationships and partnerships with Indigenous communities. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that I myself am on Treaty 6 territory, but I'd like to acknowledge all of the territories in Alberta, just to make sure that we're acknowledging all of the territories that you might be sitting on, as well as you tune into this virtual meeting today. So I would like to acknowledge with respect Treaties 6, 7, 8, 4, and 10, as well as the Métis regions of Alberta and all of our Métis settlements. We acknowledge our treaty obligations and are excited to live in accordance of friendship and relationship. So I'm going to get started here. I'm going to share my screen. And really today, My presentation is a little bit on Indigenous tourism and then a lot on building relationships with Indigenous communities. Typically, I like to ask at the beginning of this presentation if anybody has worked with Indigenous communities before. It's a really good way for me to see, maybe reflect on what has worked, what hasn't worked, and then to provide some tips as well. But to get started, I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction into Indigenous Tourism Alberta. So we are a not-for-profit membership-based society, and we were created in 2018. So we have members all across the province, and all of our members are 51% Indigenously owned tourism businesses, and then we have a handful of industry partners as well who have signed up for our membership too. Our mission is to grow and promote authentic, sustainable, and culturally rich Indigenous tourism experiences, showcasing Alberta as a premier Indigenous tourism destination. And our vision is to see the Indigenous peoples of Alberta thrive through a financially sustainable Indigenous tourism economy, sharing cultures and stories. So I'm going to show this video here. This is just a beautiful video on really the power of Indigenous tourism. It was created by the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, and it really talks about what is Indigenous tourism, why we're doing it.
We have a story to tell. It's an opportunity for us to share our culture, about who we really are.
Everybody in the world has an Aboriginal past. Doesn't matter what country you come from, there were Aboriginal people of that land, but they're so far removed from it, from thousands of years of separation, whereas we're still living in living memory in Canada. I am a traditional guide. I come from a very long lineage of people who made that as their living to bring explorers through this area to teach them about the land. Aboriginal people are able to really reconnect with their own culture and traditions, and perhaps even learn more and more as we take a step back into our traditional ways of life and our knowledge. And we're doing that through tourism. It's a wonderful way for us to reconnect with actually who we are as well.
Each nation has something particular to bring. All the nations that exist, they can bring their own experience that is going to enrich the rest of society.
It is a great honor for me to present my nation to these people that come sometimes from halfway around the world. It is a great responsibility, I believe, to present my culture in the most honest and historically accurate way possible, because I might be the only one that they ever meet.
The tourists that would come here, they need to leave and to say, without them, we would not be who we are today. We would not know Canada as it is today.
They want to listen. They want to learn. They want to take something back to their own communities and people and family, that they've come and experienced something wonderful that they heard about, but now they've actually come here and experienced firsthand.
We get everything from a store, and there was a time, that you had a relationship with everything. You don't see caribou, it's not in life today, but it certainly was big in the old days. It sustained us. Every time I do a image of a caribou, in some way repopulates them. at least in our mind and our memory. I think that's one way to keep these stories and our culture alive.
The doors to Aboriginal tourism across Canada and around the world are opening.
We are able to present our culture in quite an honest way, yet at the same time live off the tourism industry that stems from sharing that culture.
It's a great way to help to benefit the communities financially, but it's also a wonderful way to connect people to our culture, to learn a little bit more about who we are from us. I think what they really want is that true immersion experience of being able to be part of this landscape.
They want to beat the drum. They want to dance the dance. They want to be able to share in that and feel it in the heart and be able to remember it forever, because once you hear the beat of the drum, you'll never forget it.
That is one of my favorite videos, because it really, you know, it's an amazing way to see actual Indigenous entrepreneurs and really see why they're in the tourism space and really what it means to work in Indigenous tourism. It's a way of sustainability. It's a way of sharing a culture and living traditionally and making a living from that. Fantastic. So I'm just going to go over a couple of quick definitions so that you can understand the landscape of what Indigenous tourism is. So we define Indigenous tourism as being all tourism businesses majority owned, so 51% Indigenously owned and controlled. We also see it that it demonstrates a connection and responsibility to the local Indigenous community and traditional territory where the operation resides. So an example of this is River Crew Resort and Casino, if you've ever been there. It is owned and operated by Inukjuat Nation. And then we get into a subsector of Indigenous tourism, and this is where a large majority of our membership actually stands, is with Indigenous cultural tourism. So this means that they are still 51% Indigenously owned, that responsibility to community. However, a significant portion of the experience incorporates Indigenous culture in a manner that is appropriate, respectful, and truthful to the Indigenous culture that's being portrayed. We talk a lot about authenticity, and the authenticity of Indigenous tourism is ensured by the active involvement of Indigenous people in the development and the delivery of the experience. So we always say nothing about us without us, or we also hear Indigenous-led, settler-supported. So it's very important that moving into partnerships, relationships in Indigenous tourism, that it is Indigenous-led because it is about our culture. And then we have Indigenous cultural experiences. So these are tourism businesses that aren't majority Indigenously owned and operated. So they don't meet the Indigenous tourism criteria and they can't apply for our membership. They could be industry partners of ours, but it still offers the visitor a cultural experience in a manner that is appropriate, respectful, and truthful, again, to the culture being portrayed. A great example of this is Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump. So Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump is still a very important and significant place for the Blackfoot Nations. However, it is owned by the government. So it is not Indigenously owned, but they still go through an incredible amount of protocol, elder engagement, and all of the interpreters who do the Indigenous aspect of the experience are Indigenous. And then there's also Indigenous culinary tourism. So this includes foraging, preparing, and traditionally making Indigenous cuisine. And Indigenous tourism is really, Indigenous culinary tourism, it is rapidly growing. So when we look a little bit at Indigenous tourism, we have 4 strategic pillars. That's development, marketing, partnership, and then leadership. Everything that we do at ITA falls into these different pillars. And I'll take you through on a kind of a higher, quick level a little bit later on some of the work that ITA does. But a little bit of setting the landscape, you know, when we look at tourism within Alberta, prior to COVID, there were 34.8 million person visits. Tourism within Alberta is growing. It's a very large industry. It's an industry of industries, we like to say. And but it's very interesting because 84% of the tourism industry in Alberta is supported by Albertans traveling within Alberta. We love to travel within our own province. So domestic tourism is a big part of our Alberta market, but we still have had 5.5 million person visits from outside of Alberta. When we look at Indigenous tourism, this is prior to COVID, Indigenous tourism had a GDP contribution of 166 million. It created over 3,000 jobs. And in 2019, we found that we had 160 tourism businesses. This number we do believe has increased because our membership currently sits at about 148 businesses. So we're anticipating that that's a little bit higher. And of course, speaking of our membership, this is our current membership. So we have members both from being in development, like just in the idea phase, to being export ready, which means that they're working with international travelers already. So we at ITA, it is part of our mandate to really try to help the businesses that are in development get to market ready, you know, visitor ready to market ready to export ready. We want to try to increase their market preparedness. And we do that through a variety of different workshops, different coaching sessions, different things that we do at ITA. When we look at the demand for Indigenous experiences, this was found from Destination Canada in 2019. So it found that 1 in 4 domestic travelers want an authentic Indigenous experience, and 1 in 3 international travelers. So this is huge. There's a huge growth, huge and growing the demand for Indigenous tourism. So I'll take you through very quickly a little bit of our work that we do at ITA, following those 4 strategic pillars that I had just mentioned. So we work in development. So development is my area. So we have various entrepreneur workshops, community readiness workshops. We also do a cultural awareness program for our industry partners. And this is a full day program. We're going to be launching this in September. So we'll let you know where all of the dates are going to be and where the locations are going to be. We also have stimulus relief funds, micro grants. We also have an Indigenous Tourism Summit, which will be happening in November. And that is open to everybody, of course. So we'd love to have you there. And then, of course, we have support pages, webinars, and then community pathway programs too. Another large pillar is marketing. So we are a destination marketing organization, provincial destination marketing organization for Indigenous tourism. So we do a lot of content creation. We attend conferences, trade shows. We do marketing campaigns, website, and then of course we have our social media platforms too. And then in terms of leadership and partnership, this is really the work that we do on kind of a provincial, federal government level of things, making sure that Indigenous tourism is advocated for, that it is at the front of other destination marketing organizations' minds, chambers, for example, all of those different things. And we also like to have a national-wide industry alignment. So we meet with all of our provinces and territories, as well as the national organization, to make sure that we're all in the same alignment. And also, if you want, feel free to check out our Moving Forward Together. So this is our new strategic plan for 2020 to 24 based on COVID recovery. All right, so you have watched my video, you've seen the demand for Indigenous tourism, you are excited, and you want to know, okay, how can I build partnerships? How can I build relationships with some of these Indigenous businesses or Indigenous communities? So first off, why? Why is it important to create relationships with Indigenous communities, create innovative partnerships? So you always want to think about your why first. Some of the whys that we've seen in creating partnerships is really a stronger united voice for engaging businesses. There's an increased ability to access funding lots of the times. When you're working with communities and other entrepreneurs within the area, that creates a stronger regional identity. And then, of course, it's cost savings as well. If you're providing services, you have higher efficiencies, typically less duplications. And then, of course, the creation of more jobs for local development. We also see that you can really leverage unique financial, human, physical capabilities of each partner, right? Do what you do best, partner for the rest. There are people who have skills that you might not have, and it's great to be able to partner with those kind of businesses. And also, we see coordinated planning efforts to improving land management, protecting resources and natural environments as well. But when you want to start a relationship with really anybody, but particularly Indigenous communities and entrepreneurs, it really starts with awareness first. So I put up this slide because in order to understand who you might be working with, it's really important to look at Indigenous ways of knowing and being, because a lot of Indigenous people have these kind of worldviews. And so that means that they really influence how they work in business, because the way that Indigenous people do business is not the same as the way that Western society does business. And it really comes from these 4 fundamental areas of Indigenous ways of knowing and being. So we look at the land, language, governance, and then kinship relations. So when we look at the land, Indigenous people are inherently tied and connected to the land. We don't see the land as a resource, we see the land as a living being. And so everything that we do on the land, everything that we develop does come from that lens. Additionally, we also follow natural law cycles, and that influences ceremony, which is important to realize because, for example, we're going into summer right now, and summer is traditionally a time for ceremony. We have sun dances, we have sweat lodges. So this is important to realize, depending on the time of the year, there might be ceremonies going on. And if you're trying to engage with a community during that time, you won't have that much luck. We also see, for example, during hunting season, the first couple weeks of October, a lot of times Indigenous organizations end up shutting down because people are out hunting. So we still live in relation to the land and land cycles. And that's really important to learn and to understand. Then we look at language. So our language really comes from the land, but I bring up language because we are storytellers and because we have an oral culture. So this is also important to realize because a lot of times in the business world, a lot of things will be sent through email, requests, those kind of things. I always recommend picking up the phone first. Picking up the phone and then be aware that whatever you say, for us, what we say is very intentional. And so whatever you say, you have to hold yourself accountable. So if you've promised something verbally, it's very important to follow up on that because we do have an oral culture. I even recommend, if it's okay, to record a session as well. And then from our language really comes elder and youth roles. So this is important too, because whenever you're developing a new partnership, it's very important to also engage with elders and then the youth from those communities too, because they also have input that is really important in Indigenous communities. Then we look at governance. Governance is a funny word to use because we didn't typically call it governance. But the understanding of treaties, our treaty obligations, you know, there are different roles within society. We have different natural laws. We have creation stories, trickster stories as well. So that's really how our government traditionally was formed. And then, of course, kinship relations. So kinship relations are very, very important. You see, I have family on here, trade systems. We had trade systems all across North America at one point in time. You know, they have found abalone shells in the middle part of Turtle Island, whereas we know that abalone shells come from the west. They have remnants of artifacts up in the north that were traditionally from the south. So we had trade systems, but kinship relations are important in understanding when you're working with Indigenous communities, because relationship is the most important thing. We always recommend start the relationship before you ever need something and make sure that you have a strong relationship. It's very different. It's not the same as a business relationship, so to say. It holds a little bit more weight when you're starting to create relationships with communities. So I show this photo because this is a treaty map. It's a treaty map, it's also a nation map, and it's also a Métis region map too. So, you know, I know we're dealing kind of with Grand Prairie area, but it's a great map to look at because then you can really see, okay, who are the surrounding nations? And then you can also see what type of nation they are. So the circles are Cree and the squares are Dene or Sitina, depending on where in the province you are. So you can really take a look and see, and then you can also see, okay, we're in Métis Nation, Alberta Region 6, and this is Treaty 8 territory. So I'm going to take you through a fantastic resource, and I definitely recommend, you know, going through this resource on your own time to really, really dive deep into it. I'm going to do a very high level overview, but this is called the Community Economic Development Initiative, the CEDI. And it was created by CANDO. So CANDO is the Indigenous Economic Development Corporation of Canada. And they created this program, this resource, and it really goes through 4 key steps on building relationships with Indigenous peoples and with Indigenous communities. So these are the 4 steps. We begin with connecting, then vision, deciding, and then acting. I'm going to break these steps down with a little bit of key tips for you. But I also want to bring your awareness to the amount of time, because I think a lot of people think that relationship building is very quick, but it's important to acknowledge that there has been distrust in the past. And so relationships sometimes take a little while to form. So our first phase is our connection phase. So in connection, this is really based on relationship building, sharing history, culture, economic development, and then deciding if you will work together. So I want to take you through a couple different tips on engaging with Indigenous peoples. And this is all still within the connection phase. So the first thing is face-to-face interactions are really important. It's tough because of COVID times, but I highly recommend that once we're out of COVID and it's safe to safely meet, I would always meet with a community, because you are going to just get that much further. Trust me on this one, you'll get that much further than you would picking up the phone or even sending an email and video chatting. I had mentioned this one before, but establish relationships with Indigenous communities before you need something. It's important to remember names and different protocol. And then, as I had mentioned before as well, with the awareness part before connection, it's important to research your community and the governing parties even before going into that community. I recommend that people recognize the importance that individual nations highly value their autonomy. So not every nation speaks for another, and try not to set up situations where this is the case. So a good example of this is in central Alberta, there is the Musqueam Nation, right? But Musqueam is actually created from 4 different nations. There's Samson, Montana, Ermineskin, and then Louisville. Now, if you wanted to meet with these nations, it is important to meet with them all separately, because every single one of them, even though they fall under the same umbrella of being from Musqueam, they all have individual economic development initiatives, different values. So again, individual nations, they really highly value their autonomy. And so this goes into, if you're working with 2 nations, contact them both individually first. Doing your due diligence to learn about and follow community protocols and or best practices. So protocol is a very, it's a very wide conversation. Typically, it's quite traditional that if you want to start a relationship, you can bring a present. If you're asking any kind of cultural knowledge questions, anything that has to deal with culture, it is very customary to provide red trade cloth and tobacco, especially when you're talking with an elder, and you present that in your left hand. If you ever have any questions regarding protocol, please feel free to reach out to ITA and we can help guide you. In chatting about kind of ceremony, there are many ceremonies that Indigenous communities partake in. I had alluded to this a little bit earlier, but just be aware when Indigenous communities might be having an event or a ceremony, and your meetings will probably get bumped, or to try to schedule a meeting at a different time. And then it goes a long way when you try to learn the proper pronunciation of words. And if you're unsure, just please ask. It's always better to ask, and we are always available to help with pronunciation as well. Determine who the appropriate community contacts are, and then make sure that they're kept informed throughout the duration of your project, not just at the beginning when you need to have them on side. So again, communication throughout projects is just a very important thing overall, just in general. And then again, First Nations communities are communally held. So sometimes that slows down the process because they want to make sure that everybody agrees with what's being presented. A little bit of terminology, and we'll get into this, but Indigenous peoples identify themselves in a variety of ways. So always go with how somebody identifies themselves. I highly recommend always using the term Indigenous unless otherwise specified. And this is when we get a bit into terminology. So the current and appropriate term to use is Indigenous. We don't use Aboriginal anymore. You heard it in the video because that video is actually several years old, but we don't use that term anymore. And then some other Canadian terms, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. I also recommend using plain language. That's a very important one. Expect to participate in cultural events and don't be afraid to ask for protocol guidance from the host. So often when you're creating relationships, it's very customary that Indigenous communities like to do ceremony together. An important one as well is just to recognize the intergenerational impacts of residential schools, colonization. This can often have links to substance abuse or just distrust. Always dress down. You know, we are a very humble kind of people. You don't have to dress up super fancy. And then I also recommend keeping a buffer time between the end of meetings with Indigenous communities, because we like to give respect that sometimes things take time over just the allotted hour. Again, just provide transparent information and then honoring agreements and oral agreements. So that is all in Connect. So once you've been able to connect, build relationships, then we head over into Vision. And really from Vision is when together you create a shared vision for relationship. And lots of times people like to formally commit either through treaty, modern day treaties, or through MOUs. After that, the visioning, that's when you get to deciding on the joint initiatives and developing work plans and structures of governance. And then you get to the act. And that is when you work together to implement the work plans. And something that you should think about before you even start this process is your intention, right? What is your intention with building relationships with Indigenous communities related to tourism? You should always be able to answer your intention, but your intention also shouldn't be to make money. Your intention shouldn't be, because I think I have to. It should come from a good intention of actually building relationships that will have longevity. So again, you know, we see that sometimes this can take a little while, but the thing is that it's all goes in circles. So once you're done with a certain project, doesn't mean that you're done with the relationship. That continues on, and you will find that those relationships will be very, very strong. And all of this requires a shift in thinking. So we shift from coexisting to partnering. We shift from being informal to formal, from competition to collaboration, from being reactive to being proactive, and then from thinking short-term to thinking long-term. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for having me today. If you have any questions, I would love for you to send them over to us at info@indigenoustourisamalberta.ca. I'd also love for you to check out our website too. Hopefully you can get out and travel a little bit, and that Indigenous tourism will be in your plans. We have some phenomenal businesses, so you can check them all out as well at indigenoustourisamalberta.ca. So I'd like to thank everybody again for listening, for watching in, and thank you for having me. Kinanaskumtin Aihai.
Miigwech Mackenzie. I'd like to take a moment to emphasize Mackenzie's comments about deciding on authentic intentions, developing work plans, and building strategies. These foundations take time to build, and openness and transparency are the key to creating that foundation as a strong one. Mackenzie, we are truly proud to know you, and your knowledge, vision, and expertise has been invaluable to us as a chamber. You're an incredible asset to Indigenous tourism in our province. For more information on Indigenous Tourism Alberta, we'll have a short video at the end of our event today, as well as much more information in our event package, which is being emailed to all of you in the following days. And now I'm pleased to have Honourable Rick Wilson, Minister of Indigenous Relations, say a few words on behalf of the Government of Alberta. Minister Wilson grew up and went to school with members of the Musqueam Nation. He lived near the four bands in the summer village of Mamio Beach, which he considers an integral part of his personal story. Minister Wilson was appointed as Alberta's Indigenous Relations Minister in April of 2019. He brings his rich life experience and dedication to Alberta's First Nations to the portfolio and remains focused on reconciliation, consultation, and ensuring that Alberta's First Nations are partners in the prosperity of the province.
Hi, I'm Rick Wilson, Minister of Indigenous Relations, and I just wanted to bring you greetings today from the province of Alberta. I'm in the legislature today on Treaty 6 territory, and I'm just so happy to be able to talk to the Parkland Regional Chamber of Commerce. You do such an amazing amount of work out there. You got some of the greatest businesses in Alberta right in our backyard here, and I know it's been a tough year on some of you, but we're coming through this, we're coming through it strong, just because of the folks like you that just really believe in this province and work so hard to create employment for so many people out there. Thank you so much for all you do there. In my department, we've been working very closely, of course, with the Indigenous people, and we've come up with a program that we call the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation. Now, this is a $1 billion fund. It's not a grant, but it's a backstop. And it's to help the First Nations, Indigenous people, and the Métis to get involved in some of the larger businesses that they normally wouldn't be able to, because they can't go to a bank and put their reservation up as collateral. So it's been tough for them to get involved in some of the bigger businesses. So we've come up with the idea that we backstop them to get involved in some of the bigger projects, like minimum $20 million project. So the first one we got out of the chutes was the Cascade Power project out by Hinton. Now that's a great project to highlight Alberta's good, clean natural gas. And so we're gonna help, they're working with the Cascade Power plant. It's just under $100 million that we backstop them to be full partners at the table with Cascade Power. And they're gonna create over 8% of Alberta's power right out in that area. So right now, as we're speaking, there's probably 100 guys on the ground that are working right now. There'll be up to 600 people working there to build this power plant. So it's creating a lot of employment, and we're creating some skilled workers. Because we've also have a program that's our employment partnership program. Now this is working to help train young Indigenous folks how to be skilled tradesmen. Because as the Premier said, having an apprenticeship ticket is just as good as having a university degree. I've gotten a trade certificate myself, and this is where it got me. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there for our young people, and we really want to focus on that and help them to grow as we move along. We've also got some other programs. We call it our Aboriginal Business Investment Fund. Now, this is a grant to help just with some of the smaller businesses to kick them off, and for some of the communities that don't have the ability to get into some of the bigger stuff. So with this program, we've done everything from helping with campgrounds. We did a little service station for them, and if you've ever been up to Fort Chip, you know what it's like up there. You buy a liter of milk, it's $16. So by helping them create their own little store up there, they've been now able to keep the prices at a good rate where the young families can afford to buy those fruits and vegetables and milk for their families. So we're really proud of being able to do these types of things, and to be able to help the Indigenous people be partners in prosperity with Alberta. So thank you again for all that you do.
Thank you, Minister Wilson. The Minister refers to several resources and opportunities available to both Indigenous and non-Indigenous business owners and their employees. One entity in particular, which the GPRC has been working closely with, is AXIS, Edmonton's Aboriginal Business and Professional Association. As a part of Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday, June 21st, AXIS and the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce are pleased to be presenting a conversation with the Honourable Rick Wilson. This event will discuss the importance of engaging with First Nations and Métis communities, while also noting how the Government of Alberta is working to ensure the Indigenous workforce is an integral part of Alberta's economic recovery. Following his formal presentation, guests will have an opportunity to submit questions to Minister Wilson for a dedicated question and answer period. For more information or to register for this upcoming event, please go to the Access website, accessyeg.ca, or contact the GPRC for a direct link. And now I'd like to make mention of an impactful video about economic reconciliation, which I was introduced to through Access, the link to which you will find in our resource email upcoming after this event. Minister Wilson spoke about creating employment and building partnerships in prosperity between Indigenous communities and the province of Alberta. This short 6-minute video explains economic reconciliation further. In it, David Suzuki states, "The body of Indigenous knowledge is about how you live in this place. That is, to me, the basis of sustainability. And that knowledge is thousands and thousands of years old and will never be duplicated by science." He goes on to say, "The only way I believe that we have to guide us into finding a new way of living is the Indigenous communities." Dr. John Burrows in this video says, "Indigenous entrepreneurs build different businesses differently." And also Miles Richardson in this video has a memorable quote, "We need strong, sustainable communities to get there, but then you've still got to build entrepreneurs, your community corporations, and your nation initiative in a way that reflects who we are." And that is how we make it all work. That's how we grow. We come together, we create, and we celebrate our most authentic selves. Together we always win. Now, when I first saw the drum group Chubby Cree, I was struck by their incredible talent and the strength in their voices and their drumming. Celebrating their authentic selves, I'm pleased at this time to share this performance with all of you. Here are Chubby Cree. Chubby Cree are amazing, and we are so honored to have had them available for our event. We look forward to collaborating with them more in the future and hope that you will also consider them for upcoming events, programs, or celebrations. At this time, I'd like to thank our event sponsor, Cisco. At Cisco, they strive to increase the diversity of their workforce, reflecting the communities they serve at every level of their organization. They have taken a multifaceted approach to cultivate a culture where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, feels comfortable bringing their whole authentic self to work, and feel a strong sense of belonging. They feel so strongly about the importance of inclusion, it is one of their core values that defines who they are. Thank you to Cisco, Genco Construction, the Government of Alberta, and all of our partners for their time, effort, and commitment to this event. We would not have been able to create this event without you. Together with these partners, we've put together a short survey which will appear with a QR code after our upcoming roundtable discussion. The information we gather through this survey is of great importance to all of our partners, and I hope you'll take a few minutes to answer. If you don't have your phone handy, it will also be available in the email package, which will be sent out shortly after this event. Now, I'm pleased to have Adam MacArthur, General Manager of Community Futures Capital Region, as the moderator for this next roundtable discussion. The GPRC has been working closely with Community Futures on a number of initiatives in 2021, including Indigenous Business Connections and the Project Support for Women-Owned Businesses Initiative. Amanda Conklin-Ward, owner of Whiplash Aesthetics, was an integral part of the roundtable discussion. However, as restrictions for personal services were loosened, Amanda was inundated by client bookings and was unable to join us in the roundtable. Adam graciously took time out of his busy schedule to speak separately with Amanda, and we're pleased to present both the roundtable and Adam's interview with Amanda to you now.
Good morning, everyone, once again. My name is Adam MacArthur. I am the General Manager of Community Futures Capital Region. Community Futures Capital Region is a not-for-profit organization that's been operating for 24 years out of Stony Plain, Alberta. And we provide business services and financing to new or existing small and medium enterprises within Parkland County, Brazeau County, and Leduc County. And one of our board's priorities this year is to help find creative ways to help support Indigenous-owned businesses. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here and find out more about your organizations and services they provide and the businesses that are existing in our community, and get an understanding of your journey to where you are right now, so we can hopefully all learn from each other and better connect and grow. So I'm going to go ahead and work my way around the virtual table. The first person I would like to call on to give us an introduction for themselves and a brief overview of their business is Wendy Pozolensky. Wendy Pozoluzny of Native Wild. Wendy, how are you doing today?
Great, thanks for asking. So, my name is Wendy Pozoluzny. I'm a Métis woman from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I moved to Alberta. I brought my 2 boys with me, and I married a Métis man. My passion for my culture has brought me to where I am today. I do find some challenges along the way, but I opened a store here in Spruce Grove and Treaty 6, and so I just really want to bring culture to our area and wherever.
Hey, thank you, Wendy. Next, I would like to ask Rylan Monkman to introduce himself and the organization he's with.
Thank you. My name is Rylan Monkman. I work for Careers the Next Generation. Careers is a unique not-for-profit organization that introduces youth to rewarding careers in skilled trades, technology, and other high-demand industries. We connect schools and students to employers for a paid internship, and our mission is to enable youth on their path to rewarding careers. I'm also a small business owner of Monkman's Mobile Detailing.
Ryland, say that name again.
Monkman's Mobile Detailing.
Monkman's Mobile Detailing. Thank you very much. Good plug. Next, I'd like to go to Marie to introduce herself and her business.
Hello, my name is Marie Lazat. My company is called That Decor, and I am an interior decorator that specializes in custom window treatments like curtains, shades, blinds, drapery, all of that fun, beautiful stuff. I have been in business for 4 years. I am a Métis woman from Northern Alberta, and yes, just settled here in Spruce Grove 10 years ago, and yeah, I'm quite loving the area, and I'm excited about being here today and seeing all these awesome faces and supporting our community.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to go to Rocky Sinclair to introduce himself and the organization he's with. How you doing, Rocky?
I'm doing very well. Good morning, folks. Thank you, firstly, to Greater Parkland Regional Chamber for inviting us to this event. My name is Rocky Sinclair. I'm the president of AXIS, which is Edmonton's Aboriginal Business and Professional Association. That's the hat I wear today. My day job is I'm the CEO of the Alberta Indian Investment Corporation. I'm Cree from Northern Alberta as well, but I'm a resident of Edmonton and have been for 35 plus years. So I'm glad to be here and prepared to expand a little bit on what AXIS does in the greater Edmonton area. So thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for being able to join us, Rocky. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So I'm going to kind of go around in a circular fashion and provide some questions for our entrepreneurs and provide questions for Ryland and Rocky to elaborate on their organizations. And I'm going to come back to Wendy right now to get started. Wendy, what brought you to your destination?
Well, I grew up in Manitoba, and then I moved here when I was 11, and we had not followed our culture a lot. We didn't really even know about it. We weren't taught about it. And as time went by, I realized there was a reason why I didn't know about my culture. And so I dug into it a little bit more, and I started asking questions just within myself, and all the things I was feeling within myself was just coming out, and I was able to track down why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And I went into my original culture, and I just decided to follow that and stay with it and find out why things were happening the way they happened. And so it's been a long journey to where I am today, but I just decided to grab my passion and run with it.
So Wendy, you describe your journey as being a long one. Can you give us a little bit more detail of what was included along the way as you were rediscovering your culture and your passion?
As far as, there's a little bit of racism, there's a little bit of, there's just so many aspects to where I am today, but in a nutshell, I guess, the fear we had as Aboriginal people and not being able to talk about our color of our skin led to my family not sharing my culture with me. And so I found it extremely disappointing and heartbreaking. So, my grandmother was always worried about the color of our skin. So I just want to push back and bring that back so she knows. I mean, she's passed obviously for some time now, but just to let our culture know that these things are not, we're trying to improve that, and just to push forward and be able to have the things that I love to have without being criticized or being afraid or things like that. So It holds dear to my heart because I know what my grandmother went through, and it's just really shameful, actually.
Thank you for elaborating on that. I appreciate that. Marie, can you give us an idea of what brought you to your destination where you are now?
Well, for myself, I think what brought me to my destination was, of course, my childhood and growing up. I grew up on a Métis settlement in northern Alberta, and I think that, it was, we practiced a lot of cultural things. Like I grew up on a trap line, things like that, and stuff like that. So it was just part of what I did. But what brought me to where I'm at today is, I think, a lot of disruption in my home. It was become very volatile, and I was always building forts and building beautiful forts. What I did as a kid with a fort was amazing, and I would make like snow forts and tree forts and everything. But I think I was always creating a safe place, a nice safe place. And when I decided in my early 20s, when I was like, I wanted to become an interior decorator, but then I was like, how can this serve the world? Like, I'm not being a nurse or anything. And until I kind of came to the conclusion that your home is your safe place, right? And part of that is the aesthetics of it is a feeling. And so I'm like, well, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to become an interior decorator, and then I'm going to help Métis women, young teenage Métis women who are starting over or whatever that situation is, to recreate a new home, a new safe place for themselves and their kids. Because I was in that situation a lot growing up, and we were in like women's shelters, starting over, things like that. So I have built a business, but I know that that's the core of where I want to go as I'm building, and go from there.
So Marie, it sounds like your passion for your business was very much inspired by your life right from early childhood. Is that a fair reflection?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm going to come to Rylan now. Rylan, with Careers Next Generation, can you give us an idea of what excites you about your organization's programs and services, specifically those intended for Indigenous entrepreneurs?
So what excites me about Careers Next Generation and the work that we do is we get to give back and help students find what's meaningful to them, find their passion, and find their drive to better them. We have a lot of amazing programs that can help all different students from the trades. We have the Registered Apprenticeship Program, our Information Communication Technologies program. We're helping students get into the tech industry. And one of my personal favorite ones is called Indigenous Youth Careers Pathways. And this program gives mentorship to Indigenous students and guides them through different career paths. So they're not limited to the Registered Apprenticeship Program or the Information Communication Technologies. We're working with these students across Alberta to give them the tools to achieve whatever their goals are. If it's business, if it's arts, if it's design, whatever it might be, we want to help these students get to where they want to go. And when I was in high school, I was a rap student and had a child at 15 years old. And the work that Careers Next Generation does helped me get my Red Seal ticket, so now I can help other students achieve their goals.
That's interesting, Rylan. A quick follow-up question. Would you find that the students participating in that career pathway program, that they have to incorporate different skill sets, their actual trade perhaps, or their actual skills related to their vocation, but also potentially that of an entrepreneur, that of a business owner who so often has to wear so many hats? Do you find that they recognize that?
I'm not sure. I find with the Indigenous Youth Careers Pathways is we don't have a lot of students utilizing the options that they have. A lot of students are kind of stuck on just the trades. They're so narrow-minded on what's out there that we're trying to open up their opportunities so that they can see that they can get into accounting, they can get into marketing, they can get into online social media, and so many things that entrepreneurs need to know. From being a small business owner, like you said, you wear many hats, from your own accountant, your own bookkeeper, your own website designer. And what the Indigenous Careers Pathways is, we can give those students a little bit of those knowledge before they get out into the real world and see maybe they don't like something and maybe they don't want to go down that road. But at least we can give them that tool now before they get into post-secondary and figure out thousands of dollars later that they don't like it.
There's great value in figuring out sometimes that a certain path is not for you. I can appreciate that sentiment, absolutely. I'm going to come to Rocky now. Rocky, your work with Access, can you tell me what about the organization's programs and services you find exciting and you're particularly enthusiastic for? Specifically, obviously, either the Access itself's focus on Indigenous entrepreneurs and professionals. What gets you? What makes you excited in the morning from your work with them?
Well, maybe just as a foundation to our beginnings is significant. Before I answer that question, it's interesting that the two entrepreneurs that are participating in this call, their either cultural experience or familial experiences have led them to where they are now, which is not an uncommon story in the Indigenous community in terms of what motivates you either to business and or a career. And those similarities, of course, happen in organizational development, such as the careers group as well as Access. We recognized early on, and when I say we, the founders of the organization, which should have been prior to 2013, recognized that there was a gap in services provided or advocacy work for the entrepreneurial or business community, Indigenous business community within the greater Edmonton area. There were certainly lots of services related to social need, and the typical organizations are out there, very critical services they provide, but we found that there was, in our group, found that there was a need for advocacy related to supporting Indigenous business, and that was really our beginning. So, the same thing that motivated us prior to 2013 to start the organization is what keeps us going today. It's not as much as an excitement as it is a need, a recognized need. So there is a validation that what we're doing is important work. Otherwise, we wouldn't have, still be here after 8 years. And lots of work needs to be done with the growing, Indigenous business activity within the greater Edmonton area, given we are a historical Indigenous hub for both education, business, and recreation for Indigenous people in Western Canada. Actually, Edmonton is a hub, and for the far north as well. So that really is what keeps us going. We recognize that we recognized early on that it was needed, and have that validated every day by virtue of the requests that we get for events like this to give perspective on Indigenous business and why it's important. So it's the kind of thing that keeps us going, and we continue to be committed to it.
Thank you, Rocky. I'd like to ask a follow-up question, if I may.
Sure.
You speak more to the need of the services that Access looks to provide. Can you give us the sense of perhaps what you've seen shift or change from 2013 when that you reference the program starting before to what you see today in 2021?
I would say that it's probably more in the organizational aspect of the Indigenous business community having a voice or kind of a portal between the Indigenous community, the Indigenous business community, and the non-Indigenous community, both in institutions and or other associate members that are also in business. So, I see that aspect growing where there is there is ambition that there needs to be more done in terms of integration and opportunity and reconciliation when it comes to business. Certainly from the associate members side, I think that it has there's been a validation over time that those forward-thinking non-Indigenous businesses see the value of reaching out to the Indigenous community in some way, not unlike what is being done here today and the efforts that are being made. So we are a testament to those efforts is that good things can come of it. We're a long ways from achieving the things that we hope to achieve, but it's still we're taking a significant step in achieving that to date.
Thank you. I'm sure that the progress that you've noted over the last 8 years is hopefully encouraging. And like you said, it's just part of the path, though not still much in front of us. I'm going to come to back to Wendy now. Wendy, thinking about your business for a minute, as if you aren't thinking about it most minutes in the day. Who did you work with when you were getting started? And did you have a mentor or someone who you could go to for advice or bounce ideas off of and get some feedback? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. For probably 5 years or so, I was doing it online where I was doing custom orders of my fur products. And then I decided that I wanted to bring this into a full business. So I started opening my store. I originally opened in Fort Saskatchewan a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago. Then I moved to Spruce Grove area due to circumstances. So I moved everything over here. Then I started going back to doing it out of my home while I was still doing the other business in Spruce Grove. The help that I received was from my Kukum grandmother, Doreen Wabiska. She's been a huge mentor in my process and my thoughts and what I need to put forth and what things are okay and what things aren't okay. And then the Media Association has been wonderful as far as some of the funding that I have received during COVID, because COVID almost pushed me out the door and almost made me shut my doors. So I was really thankful for that, but finding the resources for someone like me that's not very good on the computer is very challenging. So I'm glad someone told me about them, and then I finally was able to go through a Pete Augustison for some funding. Otherwise, I did it on my own.
Fair enough. So Wendy, kind of taking off from that, I guess combining the idea that you did a lot of it on your own, and your admission that you're not very good on the computer. We know that entrepreneurs wear lots of different hats when they're working on their business, and that hats reference is really a nice way of saying you have a lot of different jobs. And I'm wondering, what specifically what hats do you wear in your business? What is the main areas you're focusing on to make things go day to day and year to year?
Well, I guess for me, for my store to be full, I have to be making a lot of my products. So I am a maker. And it takes time. So it takes a long time to fill the store up, as why it's probably half empty. But I am bringing in other artists Aboriginal artists to bring in and showcase their products, which also puts more product in the store, but also helps our Indigenous community. I work with special needs artists as well, so they can bring in, and people are renting shelves. So for as far as many hats, like I'm doing it all. So I'm in the retail, I'm making, I'm trying to market, which I'm horrible at. I find marketing is my weakest link, not knowing how to do it properly. And when I do it, I get banned from many sites. So it's because they don't allow fur products, or they don't allow authentic products. And so it's such a challenge for me for my marketing.
So you're a crafter, collaborator, a marketer, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, I'm sure. Right. And you feel like some of those you're stronger at, and some of those you're working on getting better at.
Well, I'm absolutely horrible at some of the things, but my goal is to eventually get to a place where I can bring in people that know what I don't know, and make it work.
So, Wendy, last question then. If you could change any component of that, what would you change?
As far as
your business, as far as the main components of your business, what if there's one thing you could, I don't want to say take off your plate or add to your plate, if there's some sort of significant change you could make, snap of your fingers?
Inventory. If I could get inventory, I'd be on top of the world. Yeah.
Okay. And that makes sense. Finding a steady supply of the products you need to keep your shop busy and
interested.
Full.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Marie, if we could come to you again, keeping in mind your business, when you were starting up, who was there helping you? Was there a mentor around to assist in those early days? Can you share some thoughts on how that looked for you?
Well, I began when I knew I was going to, when I had my idea, I was going to the, I attended a couple of workshops through Pinnacle Consulting and Boutique Open. So that was helpful for me to understand that I had a viable business, that's something that could actually work. And so that was very cool. And, just once you have that in your head, all of a sudden, with Facebook and everything, those algorithms are genius. All of a sudden, all these wonderful things are popping up on my feed to inspire me and go from there. It's a process, right? So like when I first started in the blinds industry, I was working for a small business, and I thought, okay, this is wonderful. I love this. I knew what I was going to do. I was going to go on my own. I had my product. I knew you have to love your product, and I knew that much. You have to love it 100%. And then I'm like, okay, but I need to learn more. So then I ended up working for a large contracting through a large department store. And so I learned how to work with small business, and then I learned how to work with big business. So I learned two very important ways of working my business like that. So, and then I was just ready to launch and go from there. Networking has been a very key part of my success in my business, because you're surrounding yourself with all these like so many professionals and so many people who are just awesome at what they do, and you're learning their stories, and you're collaborating and everything. Networking is just not about you getting leads from them. It is about learning. It is about personal development. Like I would have never have thought that personal development and business went together, but they do. They're hand in hand.
So thinking about your journey from getting started and ready to launch to where you are now, what are some of the roles that you play in your business on a day-to-day basis and over the longer term? What are some of the hats that you find you wear?
Well, I'm wearing all of the hats. I'm the accountant, but I have a bookkeeper. But you still have to know some stuff. You still have to input that stuff, and you still have to be able to talk to them. And it's just, I would like in the future be able to give more. I'd love to have an assistant that actually does all of my bookkeeping stuff for me, and I'll just hand her my receipts and things like that, because I'm not good at that. I'm a creative person, I'm good at sales. I'm great at social media and marketing and things like that. But as far as like the book work and stuff like that, that really hurts me. So yeah, it's not fun to me at all.
So you describe yourself as strong in terms of sales, marketing. So, yeah, you have a good social media presence. And if there is one thing you find you're trying to get better at, it's how to best stay on top of the accounting end of things. And boy, that we hear that from a lot of clients. We do. You're not alone in that by any stretch of the imagination. So lastly, then, Marie, if you could change one thing about your business's, either your operations or how you view it, what would that be, perhaps?
You know what, I reflected on that question before I even came online, and not a thing. I wouldn't change a thing. It's a journey, and I've made big mistakes, but I've always failed forward, and I am failing forward, and it's a process and it's a journey, and you have to love it all. You have to love it all, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Okay, well, that's a pretty strong endorsement of how things are going right now. That's fantastic. Thank you. So I'm going to swing back to Rylan. Rylan, can you give us an idea of what's one piece of advice or guidance, a message perhaps that you would hope that our audience today could have a takeaway about Careers Next Generation and about the services that you provide through that organization?
I could give one piece of advice, or just if somebody's listening, is just try it. Try whatever you're wanting, try whatever you're going for, go for your dreams, go for your goals. The work we do at Careers is we help place students into the trades or careers to get them going. But even if it's not with us, just go for it. If you want to become an entrepreneur, go for it. Don't let people tell you can't do it. Don't hold yourself back. Don't put obstacles in your way. Continue to jump over those hurdles and move forward, but just want it and go for it, because nobody's going to help you and nobody's going to hold your hand for your dreams or goals. You have to want it yourself.
I think it's great to hear that both that there are going to be hurdles and jump over those hurdles to the best of your ability. It's that the path is never clear, but the ability to negotiate it anyway goes far. Rocky, what's one piece of advice or guidance you'd like to put forward to the audience, a message that they could take away after viewing this session today?
Well, firstly, just on a side note, I'm feeling particularly old today. Both Marie and Wendy mentioned Apitogusan, except they don't say it exactly like I do. Apitogusan Métis Development, which is a capital corporation, Aboriginal capital corporation that assists businesses, not unlike the business that I'm involved in day to day. I was involved in that organization then 30 plus years ago. That's where I started my career. So it's reminding me how old I am. But anyway, it's really nice to hear the stories of the entrepreneurs, between Wendy and Marie. Great stories, and I've heard them many times, and wish you all the luck. So in terms of messaging, I guess two messages. One, firstly, to encourage the Indigenous entrepreneur to to look at business as an option. Look at the good things that could come of self-motivation and creating your own business, and look at the good things that come from entrepreneurship and what it can bring to you. it fits well with our culture, I believe. There is a sense of community always at the backdrop of it, but it also gives you a sense of creativity and hard work. And we're a resilient people, and we will continue to have challenges, but we'll continue to also have great successes. And we see that today. There's many great stories out there that we all are aware of. In terms of the organization and businesses that are looking at what could come of collaboration in some way with Indigenous business, I say to them, reach out. I say to them, there are good things that can come of that collaboration. I think there's mentorship opportunities, like in terms of either individual mentorship or even business mentorship. So beyond just the individual, but to assist a business, fledgling business, and through your experience. So lots can come of that. We can all learn something from each other. I think Axis is an organization that is a portal to that end. And I would invite any of those Indigenous businesses that are looking to spread the word of their products and services to join us. It's a really good opportunity. Obviously, COVID, the pandemic, has presented lots of limitations to the networking and all of the things that we're good at. But once we're done with this, we're going to come roaring back, and I know Indigenous people are going to be at the forefront of a lot of that. It's the statistics tell us that nationally, we're outpacing the rest of Canada in terms of starting businesses significantly. So it fits well for us. Entrepreneurship fits well for us, and I think Access can play a role in in facilitating those relationships and helping your business thrive. So that would be my message to both the Indigenous entrepreneur and also those non-Indigenous businesses that are looking at what benefits they might see from working with our community.
It sounds like you really value the ability for collaboration with different diverse partners, Rocky. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. I value it. I also look at it as a responsibility. I think that we can also be better. We can all be better as a community, and certainly the timing of your events, in June with Aboriginal Day falling on the 21st, and the recent tragic events that have come to light in the past days and last couple of weeks are a reminder to all of us that we can do better. So we have our own little piece of the world that we're responsible for, and we can be all better as individuals, and we can all be better as in what we do from day to day in terms of our business and our responsibilities. So I think that there's ways to do that, and that reconciliation and collaboration between all of us makes us a better community. So I think there's ways to get there, and the timing is good in that regard. So let's all be brave and do the right thing.
Well said. Thank you. I want to thank you all for your time today and your candid thoughts on how you came to be here, why your organizations matter to you, why your businesses, why you're passionate about them, and being able to participate and giving us a window into your thoughts and your experiences. I want to let anyone who's watching know that the contact information for our featured businesses today and the organizations that we spoke with will be included in a post-event email that is going to be sent out, so that you can learn more about them, and that will be done at the conclusion of our event. So thank you very much. So Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Adam MacArthur. I'm the General Manager of Community Futures Capital Region, and I'm very humble and pleased to be able to accept the opportunity to speak with some of the Indigenous entrepreneurs in our community. And this afternoon, I'm speaking with Amanda Conklin Ward, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself and her business. How are you doing, Amanda?
I'm great this evening. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Why don't you tell us the name of your business and what it's about?
So I own Whiplash Aesthetics in the heart of downtown of Stony Plain. We do medical aesthetics. It's my passion. I love empowering and helping women in any kind of need that they may need when it comes to skin issues.
So, Amanda, what brought you to your destination? What brought you to where you are today?
So back in 2015, I had decided to take the plunge and leave the finance industry. I always had a passion for aesthetics, specifically medical aesthetics. So one day I just decided to start taking some classes. I fell in love with it, and I just started going from there, one course at a time, one credential at a time. And then I've ended up here today, brick and mortar with my own sign above the building.
That's quite the change from finance to aesthetics. What's that journey look like? Can you elaborate a little bit more on some of the I guess challenges and high points you encountered along the way?
So at the age of 35, I was leaving something that I only knew, which was finance. And I was leaving that job security. People thought I was absolutely crazy for doing something completely out of the norm. But I went back to school part-time. I continued bookkeeping part-time, and I went to school, and I loved it. And I just kept on going on and on. But I had a vision, and I didn't know how to go forward with that vision. So I was able to contact Métis Nation, which then put me in touch with Apatogasun and Pinnacle Business Solutions. They believed in me. They understood what I wanted to do. And from there, they took me under their wing, and they gave me all of the tools to help me create Whiplash Aesthetics. In creating Whiplash Aesthetics, I was able to build up my clientele quickly because I have been such a long-term resident of the Parkland County area, and things just went crazy from there. And I was so blessed for it. With that happening, I was able to receive New Business of the Year award through Chambers of Commerce in November of 2019. And then from that moment on, the European Institute of Aesthetics contacted me, asking me to come onto staff and become an instructor as a medical esthetician. From there, I was able to empower so many women, so many students. Some of those students also being Indigenous like myself. And with them seeing me and everything that I'd been able to achieve in such a short period of time, they then understood that they could go ahead and do it on their own as well. I was able to give them the tools. I was able to lead them in the right direction with Métis Nation and Apatogasun. And some of those students were able to then branch out on their own and create their own businesses for their families and feed their families. And for me, I think that was probably the highlight of my own career, is watching these students do this for themselves. Also, other women coming into Whiplash Aesthetics, I was able to then empower them as well. Some of those clients also being Indigenous, they were able to step out, of their norm and create something for themselves, whether it was them getting into aesthetics or them completely changing their careers as well. They were able to go ahead and do something for themselves. And I think that's been the best part so far.
So, Amanda, you mentioned Métis Nation and Apatogasun as some of the groups that you worked with as you were getting started. Did you have any mentors in particular that you could tell us about?
I didn't have any mentors in particular. I went into this completely blind. I started Googling. I was like, there's someone that has to help me. And so I came across Métis Nation. They'd helped me out in the past when I was going to school for finance, back in the early 2000s. So I reached out to them first, and they understood what I wanted to do. So in return, then they reached out to Apatogasun, and just them alone and all of the staff there, they were able to really direct me. They were always a phone call away, an email away. They always gave me clear direction as what I needed to do in order for them to help me create Whiplash Aesthetics.
That's really good feedback. Not just that they're telling you what to do, but what to do so they can help you further. And that's a very important distinction there. We know that you act as a mentor. You referenced it already. Can you tell us about some of the successes that have come from that activity?
You betcha. So one recent one, I have another client as well. She's also been in the finance industry for about 20 years, same as myself. And she's been a client of mine for the last few years. And she also realized over the past few years that this is something that she would love to do. She enjoys it. So she has now gone back to school. She has reached out to Apatogason, and they are in the process of helping her apply for grants and funding to help her create her own business, which she is currently running out of her house, but she is soon hoping to become brick and mortar. And they've already helped her, with a little bit of funding to, start getting some equipment in, to start taking some classes. So I'm starting to see what she's doing now is how I was back in 2015. And it's absolutely amazing.
So there's not going to be too many people left in finance if you keep pulling them out and turning them into, no, I'm just kidding. So looking back on your journey to this point, it sounds mostly positive. Is there anything you could change if you could, thinking back on things?
You know what? If there was anything that I could change is I wish I would have done it a lot sooner. I wish I wouldn't have waited so long. I wish I wouldn't have been scared, because there are resources out there for us Indigenous businesses to go ahead and, and create our businesses for our families and to put food on the tables. And if I would have done it a little bit sooner, I'd be that much more ahead of the game. But you know what? I'm happy where I am. I'm glad I know what I know now. And that's why I want to help other Indigenous businesses and entrepreneurs work towards that, because I know what to do now and I know what the resources are.
That's really a great point. So many entrepreneurs are not sure exactly if this is the right time or is there too much to risk. And it sounds like you've identified that all else being equal, you're good where you are, and you could have started earlier. You didn't, so be it. It's better than waiting to start later, I suppose.
Yes.
So I think that's a really great message that should resonate with lots of folks too. So thank you, Amanda, for taking the time to tell us a little bit about yourself and your business and your journey. And I'd like to remind the audience that Amanda's business and information about it will be included in the email that is sent out to our viewers at the end of the workshop today. And thanks again, Amanda, for your time.
Thank you.
Again, a huge thank you, Nakimig and Marcy, to all of our roundtable participants, Wendy Pozoluzny of Native Wild, Marie Lizotte of That Decor, Ryland Monkman from Careers Next Generation, Rocky Sinclair of Axis, Amanda Conklin Ward of Whiplash Aesthetics, and Adam MacArthur with Community Futures. This brings us to the conclusion of our event. To close the circle, I'd like to repeat a few key thoughts from today. To our Indigenous entrepreneurs, the wisdom from today's business leaders has been to do what you do best, partner out for the rest. To create safe places, to celebrate culture, and to empower students and others to achieve their goals and to chase their dreams. For those forward-thinking non-Indigenous businesses, groups, and individuals, Mackenzie Brown has provided some basic foundational ways to start and foster relationships. By connecting, creating a vision, deciding, and acting, we can shift to partnering, collaboration, better understanding, and walking forward in a good way. On behalf of the GPRC and its partners, Braden Center for Career Advancement, the Town of Stony Plain, the City of Spruce Grove, Beta B Consulting, and myself and my team at Adamant's Financial Solutions, it has been our pleasure to bring this event to you today. Special thanks to our guests, our event sponsor Cisco, as well as the Government of Alberta and Genco Construction. So many of our regional businesses are looking for information on how to become more involved. I encourage you to reach out to our rural and urban Indigenous friends and neighbors. Ask questions. Listen to answers. Diversify, share, understand. Become a mentor to someone who needs a bit of help. Vote with your dollars. Actively support our local businesses. Make a point to increase your own knowledge, awareness, and understanding. Take advantage of the many great tourism, cultural, and community events and opportunities that are out there. For more information, please look for an email in the coming days from the Chamber, which includes links and further details for all of our speakers and featured guests. If you'd like to become more involved, the GPRC has an Indigenous Business Committee, and we are committed to increasing awareness to everyone in the region through unique programs and events such as these, catered to the evolving relationship we desire to create with the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people closest to us. Please contact the Chamber for more information on upcoming events, programs, and opportunities related to Indigenous business. My name is Paula Adametz, and it has been an honor to be your host this afternoon. And to all of you for sharing your valuable time with us here today, thank you. Ai Miigwech, Nyakami, Marcy.